The CW's primetime lineup is filled to the brim with the superheroes of the DC Universe.
Now, one group of podcasters takes to the airwaves to sift through the exciting and dynamic world of the DC Universe.
Get ready to journey to the worlds of The Flash, SuperGirl,
Arrow, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow.
From the creators of the Hangin' With Web show,
it's the Just Us Watchtower. Here's your host,
Kevin J. Kessler.
Watchtower is online.
Hey there, everybody. This is Kevin Kessler here, host of the Just Us Watchtower. Welcome back to another fun-filled week. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of your favorite DC shows this week. We're talking 2 episodes of Supergirl. We're talking Legends of Tomorrow. We're going to take a little bit of a look at the new DC movie Shazam, but with no spoilers being given. So, folks, I couldn't do this alone without my friend and colleague, my regular co-host, the one and only president of the UWA Elite Professional Wrestling Territory up in the great state of New Jersey. It's Mr. Dave Swan. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Kevin, how's it going? And happy WrestleMania weekend to you.
Yes, happy WrestleMania weekend to you as well. For folks like Dave and I who have been a part of the wrestling business for a long time, WrestleMania weekend is kind of the weekend where, you know, it's kind of like Super Bowl weekend to football fans, but it's wrestling. It's where every indie promoter in the world tries to run except for Dave Swan, because he understands that people want to see the WWE on this weekend and not, you know, anything else.
Yeah, that's right. But I will be at MetLife Stadium with 80,000 other people on Sunday night for WrestleMania. And I'll be checking out the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony in Brooklyn, New York on Saturday night. So it's going to be a great weekend. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Sounds fantastic. And I mean, I don't like being around 80,000 people, so, you know, like, I'm happy to not be there, but more power to you guys for going and taking and doing all that. Hall of Fame definitely should be pretty cool. UWA Elite just posted up a new show on the UWA Elite Network, which you can check out over at UWAElite.com. Costs only $6.99 a month. You get a week free. You can just check out Homecoming, the new show put out by UWA Elite, in which they actually feature former WWE superstar and ECW wrestler Nunzio, also known as Little Guido. So, you know, go check that out. So, Swan is going to take us through a spoiler-free look at the newest DC movie, because, you know, the Justice Watchtower is about more than just the CW's DC universe at this point. We do want to start taking a bit of a more broad look at the DC universe in general, and that includes the films, for better or for worse. But apparently, from what I'm hearing, Dave Swan, Shazam is for the better.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Shazam is the first DCEU movie that I genuinely love. I'll take it one step further. It's the first one that I genuinely like all the way through.
Okay.
But I love that movie. I saw it 2 weeks ago at the special advanced screenings. I'm going to be seeing it for the second time tonight after we wrap up filming here, because I want to see it with the opening night audience again.
All right, awesome.
It's just an absolutely fantastic movie, and in my opinion, it is without a doubt the best step forward. It's the best DC film since The Dark Knight.
That is some high praise from most people. I didn't care for The Dark Knight, but I mean, at the time I did, but looking back on it, I don't, which I'm sure we'll get into in a future episode. But so walk me through what makes, you know, this, for those of you wondering, the DCEU, that is, so those movies are Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Wonder Woman, Justice League, and Suicide Squad, and Aquaman. So those 6 films, and Shazam is the only one out of those 7 that Dave Swan has genuinely liked. I saw Aquaman with you, and while we both thought Aquaman was super acceptable, we didn't really we weren't clamoring to get back into the theater for it. But Shazam, now you're going back a second time already, so walk me through some of what works with Shazam, and if anything doesn't work.
I mean, definitely more works than doesn't work. The casting on it is absolutely perfect.
I know a lot of people were kind of like iffy about Zachary Levi when he was cast.
Yeah, and for how they play Shazam in this movie, he's absolutely perfect. They really push the whole that this is a 14-year-old kid in a man's body. And, Zachary Levi really covers that. Asher Angel, the actor that plays Billy Batson, the other half of Shazam, is an amazing actor he's from the Disney drama Andy Mack.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Yeah, he's got some great chops. That's an absolutely fantastic show. I can't talk, highly enough about. It's famous, or it's become somewhat infamous because it's the show that had the first openly gay character on Disney Channel.
Right. I remember people flipping out about that.
Yes, and Asher Angel does not play that character on the show, but he is he's a very, very good young talent. And then Jack Dylan Grazer is Freddie, who is his foster brother / confidant, and a lot of people might know him from the movie It. Which that movie. Mm-hmm. And he, without a doubt, steals this movie too.
That's awesome.
Of the three, Jack Dylan Grazer steals this movie quite easily.
Obviously, the one thing that everybody wants to see in these movies, and obviously with the first movie, you're not going to see it, I assume. Do you think it's heading toward the Shazam kids, Mary Marvel and all of them getting powers?
I can't answer that.
Okay, all right. So that's spoilery then. Now here's another question that always has to be addressed in the era of current movies: is do we stay through the credits or no?
Yes, it's Marvel style here. There's a mid-credit sequence and a post-credit sequence.
Thank God somebody over there's learning from Marvel.
But the thing that I really want to, emphasize about why I think Shazam works so much better than the other DCEU movies is because it feels exactly like an adaptation of the comic book. You could tell that the people that wrote the screenplay picked up specifically the Shazam New 52 run, mm-hmm. and just adapted that comic book run into it. It feels like a Marvel movie in the sense that the people that wrote the movie and made the movie actually love and respect these comic book characters. And that's always been my big gripe with the DC movies. Not the Berlanti-verse TV shows, the movies. Mm-hmm. Is that, I never felt like Zack Snyder liked or respected Superman. I never felt that he liked or understood Batman.
He's proven that he doesn't like or respect Batman with his most recent tirades that he's gone on. Because for some reason people are interviewing him now, and he's all bitter and angry that we didn't like his movies. And he's like, "Oh, grow up, people! Batman would kill people." And we're like, "There's about 80 years of comics that say otherwise. So shut up."
Yeah. And this is the first time that Aquaman, they play very fast and loose with his comic book lore.
Okay.
And, some of it worked, some of it didn't work, in my opinion. But to me, Shazam is the first one that really, really feels like it was made by comic book fans and by people that specifically love and understand this character.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the New 52 run of Shazam, wasn't it released in parts in the back of other books? Or
yes.
Am I thinking differently?
It absolutely started as a backup in, I believe, Justice League.
Yeah.
And then eventually it got its own run. But
did it? Have they released that? I'm sure they've released that in a trade at this point.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I remember really digging it. I'm gonna have to look at it again.
Yeah, Jeff Johns was writing Justice League at the time, and he was also writing the Shazam origin story.
Nobody better to do it.
No.
And do you think it was a good idea for them to hold off on putting Black Adam into the movie? Do you think The Rock would have kind of overpowered the movie with his presence.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a firm believer that for the superhero origin stories, with very few exceptions, that you don't break out your main villain for that.
Yeah, I agree with you unless the main villain is somehow like integral to the origin, like Red Skull with Captain America.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I think that the villain in this is perfectly serviceable because it's an origin story. So you're there to see, you know, Shazam's first day on the job, basically.
Right.
And that's what it is. But yeah, I highly recommend this movie.
Awesome. I'm happy to. I may try to go see it tonight if I can get through my work fast enough. If not, I will probably either see it tomorrow or Saturday. However, we are going to charge ahead, folks. We are talking about maybe my favorite episode of Supergirl to date in 4 seasons. So it's season 4, episode 16, House of L. And it's not L-E-L, it's L, as in L Corp, as in Lex Corp, as in Lex Luthor. Swan, it's safe to say you and I are really big fans of this Lex Luthor.
Yes, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Lex Luthor in general.
Yes, as am I, and he's done right. Yes,
I have a massive, like, Superman memorabilia collection in my office, and part of that is a Lex Luthor memorabilia collection. I have all the Lex merchandise that they put out in stores, all the figures, all the Funko Pops, everything. If it's Lex, I have it. And
even Jesse Eisenberg?
No, but they didn't make any toys of him, so...
Oh, well, that's good. So... This episode, House of L, I'm going to wait till we get back from commercial break to really dive into it, but I just want to give a little teaser. I mean, I'm going to say right off the bat, I gave this episode a 10 out of 10.
So did I.
I thought it hit everything perfectly. There was nothing I was unhappy with. It was, and you know, like television has this thing that it does now, where like halfway through a season or so, they do a flashback episode. Most egregiously, this was done in Daredevil when they gave us an entire Karen Page backstory episode, like 2 episodes from the end.
Yeah.
And, you know, Stranger Things took a really weird left turn when they did an episode focusing entirely on Eleven's journey, like, again, like right toward the end, like when things are really ramping up. This is my favorite episode that any show has done with this kind of format.
Yeah, I would 100% agree.
Yeah, but we will talk more about that when we get back from commercial, because for right now, we need to take a break. We got to hear from our wonderful, glorious, amazing sponsors. Hopefully you guys can absorb their messages and then come right back to us, because we got a lot of Supergirl and Lex Luthor to talk about this week. So we'll be right back after these words.
Who's who, what's hot and what's not. 2019 saw some amazing new creative talents, and now you can peek behind the scenes at the hottest indie creative artists in this year's edition of 25 Hottest Indie Authors, Artist Advocates 2019 magazine. Published by the renowned And I Thought Ladies, this is a one-of-a-kind look into the brightest rising stars in the creative universe. Get yours today at magcloud.com and at andwethought.com.
This is Cosplay Michael with the Hanging Out Club Show. I want to tell you about my friends at Embellis Effects in Orlando, Florida. They've got makeup, costumes, and props for all of your costume needs. And the team at Embellis Effects is helpful and friendly. Embellis Effects is one of my favorite places, and I know it will be yours too. I'll see you there. Or go to embelliseffects.com. And remember, cosplay is for everyone.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
You have more options than ever before when choosing a film, a television or internet series, a book to curl up with, or even a radio show or podcast. Get to know the people who are creating for you. The Hangin' With Web Show, hosted by award-winning author and journalist G.W. Pomichter, is the internet's fastest-growing web talk show series. The Hangin' With Web Show features professional, yet casual, in-depth interviews with creative arts and entertainment pros. Meet the people behind a digital revolution in creating more quality content than ever before in the history of media. Find the Hangin' With Web Show on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or simply go to www.hanginwithshow.com. That's www.hanginwithshow.com.
And now, back to the Watchtower.
Welcome back to the Watchtower, folks. As promised, we are about to jump into Supergirl Season 4, Episode 16, House of L. And spoiler warning for the rest of the show. I know we were very nice with our Shazam review with no spoilers given on opening night. But these episodes, as always, we're going to be spoiling the hell out of. So, without any further ado, Swan, the first thing I want to touch on, the bald elephant in the room, is Lex Luthor in this episode and his journey, all right? First off, let's talk about the fact that we got to see the Lexo suit. Also, I don't know where the Lexo suit comes from. Maybe it's on his belt or something, but it just kind of like sloops out of him throughout the course of this episode. But also, he has powers now.
Yeah.
How do we feel about Lex Luthor with powers?
All right. Well, first of all, the Lexo suit, I'll just assume is nanotechnology, because when all else fails, it's nanotech.
Right.
As far as him with powers, sure, why not?
Yeah.
I'm game. They explained where they came from.
Yeah, I mean it's been done before. I remember in Countdown to Final Crisis, which was the most glorious countdown to the biggest nothing in the history of comics. 52 issues of just 52 good issues to get ready for Grant Morrison garbage. But Lex did have Superman's powers in that at some point. I remember the cover of it very well. My favorite scene in this entire episode was probably the courtroom.
Yeah,
we see Lex on trial. Because first of all, his whole Superman made me do it speech. This is an Extinction level event. He makes his case very clear, and you understand that this is a sociopath doing what he thinks is right. And John Cryer knocks it out of the park with that monologue.
Yeah.
And
look, I don't want to say I told you so, but when it comes to John Cryer as Lex, I told you all that this was going to be glorious. I'm very happy that he did not let me down.
No, my favorite, and I don't know if this was a direction or if it was just something he did, where he was like, this jury of my peers, and he choked on the word peers. It was so, and the most Lex thing in the entire episode is when he poisons the judge and the entire jury.
Yeah, and then has a witty one-liner about it.
Yeah, because she says, we're giving you 31 consecutive life sentences, and then as they're dying, he goes, better make that 32. and as they're all dying, they start playing Frank Sinatra singing I Did It My Way, which was so perfect. Yeah. The other thing I love about Lex in prison is it's exactly what you expect from Lex Luthor in a prison. He is commanding the space. He's got the warden in his back pocket. He's clearly doing favors for the warden. And when worst comes to worst, he just kind of threatens him.
Yeah.
The plan here, I think, is pretty interesting. And it's such a Lex Luthor plan. Whenever Lex Luthor gets incarcerated or defeated, his plan is always manufacture a crisis and then solve said crisis, because then for some reason in the DC universe, they're like, Lex Luthor, savior of mankind, get on out of that jail cell, you daffy bastard. We're sorry about that.
Yeah.
And it works.
That's how he's going to become president. I'm telling you.
when he. That's why I think he's not a one and done big bad.
No.
I think that this season ends with him becoming president. After he
yes,
defeats
I
the
agree.
Russians. Yeah. The evil quote unquote Russians. They're Kosnian. They're not Russian. And I also really liked how this episode went back and showed us what Lex is doing behind the scenes for this entire season. Like, we got to see how Agent Liberty was selected to kind of be what we all always assumed he was going to be from the beginning. Once it was announced that Lex was coming, is that Agent Liberty was going to be a patsy.
Yes, yeah.
But here's the one thing. So also, we get everyone's new favorite Lex Luthor thing is to talk about Lionel Luthor and his alcoholism.
Yeah.
I feel like that was when Jeff Johns wrote Superman's Secret Origin. That was one of the first times I remember seeing that Lionel Luthor was an abusive alcoholic. And then we also had, that was of course the main fascination of the Lex that we do not speak of, Jesse Eisenberg. But daddy issues kind of have always defined Lex Luthor since Smallville, with the most glorious father-son on-screen chemistry in the universe. I don't even have anything I can like point to compare it to, because anytime I see good like antagonistic father-son chemistry, I always say, oh, it's Lex and Lionel.
Yeah, I mean, John Glover and Michael Rosenbaum had this amazing chemistry together on Smallville. And, there was a lot of times that on a very good show, they were the very best parts of a very good show.
Absolutely. My one thing with this Lex is he's already focused on Kara. When they find Red Sun, Supergirl, and whatnot, he's already kind of focused on Kara as the obstacle to overcome. Clark had left the planet and come back, I guess, but he's not worried about Superman at all.
No, well, I assume that he knows that. I mean, Lex seems to know everything, so I'm sure he's aware that Clark is off planet at this point in the series.
Right, and I had forgotten. Originally, I had put this down as a point of contention, but then I remembered that before Clark came back for Elseworlds, he was already off planet, and then went back to Argo City. Lex knows Kara is Supergirl.
Yep.
Which I think, we all kind of saw coming, but it makes me wonder if he knows that Clark is Superman.
I would think so.
See, I love when Lex doesn't know, and it's because of his one of my favorite comics of all time. Lex hires these experts to crunch numbers in a supercomputer and determine who Superman might be hiding as in the public, and it spits back out Clark Kent. And Lex kills the guy because he's like, you've wasted my time. Superman would never be someone that bumbling or stupid. And I love that level of ego that kind of prevents Lex from being from uncovering his greatest rival. But I also like the idea that, listen, this is the smartest man in the world. He's easily as smart as Brainiac 5 as a human. And he probably knows that Clark Kent is Superman. So moving along, the next thing... Got what?
I was going to say, he's even smarter than Mr. Terrific. Who is
the
third smartest man on Earth.
That Earth. It's a different Earth. Eve Tessmacher. Let's talk about her a little bit, because I'm really digging her character. It feels like they kind of replaced Mercy with Miss Tessmacher.
Yes.
Because she's pretty much doing exactly the stuff that Mercy was doing. I love that they brought Otis back, but they didn't bring Mercy back, which I thought was interesting. And I liked how they kind of classified her as a Manson girl.
Yeah,
one of these psychotic fans that fixates on these sociopaths who are in high-profile cases. I really like how Lex kind of played the long game with her, and saw that look that she gave him as he's coming down the courthouse steps, and just kind of gives Otis a little nod of his head, and that's how we go into this. What do you think about making Miss Tessmacher obsessed with Lex? Because, like, in the movies, it's a much different Eve than we got in the movies. Because in the movies, Eve was very, like, she was just kind of, like, almost rolling her eyes at a lot of his insidious plots.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think that as far as Miss Tessmacher in the movies, she's really only defined by the fact that Lex yells her name.
Yes, I do agree.
So
but I mean, she also saved Superman. She saved Superman in the first movie.
Yeah.
This is a Miss Tessmacher that's not going to turn on Lex Luthor.
No, absolutely not. And like you said, I think that if they had Miss Tessmacher and Mercy, I could see it being redundant. Yes. And from a mainstream perspective, Miss Tessmacher is a much better known character because she was in the movies as opposed to just the comics and cartoons.
I agree. So, and, you know, we've also, they're playing the long game with Miss Tessmacher here because we first got her back when Cat Grant was still around.
Yeah.
In season 2. I think it was when Mercy first showed up. Because that's when Kara stops being her assistant. And, you know, and Eve comes in. And then Eve goes to L-Corp. Now, do you think that Berlanti had this in his back pocket, like a J.K. Rowling kind of thing, where, but real? Like, where like, he knew from season 2, like, okay, we're going to plant her here and she's a spy for Lex Luthor?
Yes, I do.
I'm almost mad at myself for not seeing it, because I just never thought they would use Lex.
Yeah. See, I say that because the Berlanti-verse does have a history of planting seeds and going back to it much later on. So I think that they had this in their back pocket for a while, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? The great thing is that if they weren't ever, if something happened where they weren't able to get Lex, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, yeah.
So Eve also has a very antagonistic relationship with what I'm calling Kaznia Kara.
Okay.
I think it's just like a very catty, like, antagonistic relationship. So speaking of Kaznia Kara, before the commercial, I want to touch on her real quick. First of all, it's Kaznia, not Russia. They speak Russian, but they make it very clear to tell us this is not Russia.
Yes.
The one thing I really liked with Kaznia Kara is how Lex refers to her as it in the beginning. Like, he was like, oh, like the Russian guy was like, she's this, and that. And he goes, does it have powers?
Yes.
She clearly has an instinct to save, and she shares Kara's obsession with Alex. When the only word that came out of her mouth was Alex, I was like, God. We talked about this privately, but the obsession with Alex is getting a little weird.
I mean, I don't have a sister, so I don't.
I have two brothers. I like them just fine. I even love them and enjoy their presence. I'm not obsessed with them like that.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, I love my brothers. They're a big part of my life. If there was a clone of me, it's not coming out of the vat saying Dan and Rob. Like, that's not what's going to happen.
All I'm saying, Kev, is that one day I hope to have a boyfriend that looks at me the way that Kara looks at Alex.
Absolutely. On that note, we're going to take a commercial break here from our sponsors one more time. We'll be back. We're going to wrap this up and then talk about our next Supergirl episode.
Now on Amazon.com, iCoin from author Jeremy Mosby. It's an alternate reality, and the leader of the planet iCoin is none other than Benjamin Franklin. When corrupt officials threaten not only iCoin but the Earth as well, an unlikely chosen one must face dark foes to save the Earth and iCoin alike. Author Jeremy Mosby takes readers on a superhero's adventure through this compelling and imaginative alternate universe. Get iCoin on Amazon.com today.
You know who I might be, but that's not important. What I've come here to tell you today, that is, if you are an independent creator, if you make movies, if you're an author, if you make music, you should enter the Indie Originals Live Talent Competition. Hundreds of categories and lots of prizes will be awarded, but the clock is ticking. Visit www.indieoriginalslive.com right now. www.indieoriginalslive.com.
Joanne Fisher's The Spanish Doll. Secrets in Italy? Oh yes. Her beauty strikes him like a thunderbolt sent by the goddess Venus. When Fiore is given a peculiar gift, a Spanish doll, she is thrown into a whirlwind of entangled passion, money, secrets, and love. Get swept away today by hanging with web show featured author Joanne Fisher's The Spanish Doll. Available now on Amazon.com.
How you doing, everybody? This is KG Bethlehem. I'm an author of a new book called Certain Moments of Time. It's a collection of short stories. These short stories range from post-apocalyptic, dystopian, anti-utopia, as well as general fiction. You can find Certain Moments of Time on sale at Amazon.com, where you can purchase the ebook format as well as paperbook format. You can also purchase it at Lulu.com, paperbook format, and will be on sale soon at BarnesandNoble.com.
From the imagination of author Kevin J. Kessler, the Rosinanti dragons are no more. They have fallen into the obscurity of lore. Now warrior Valentine Beret and Seraphina, a magically gifted princess, are on a mission to save the world of Terra. Together they must face the Rosinanti legacy and combat the greatest threat their world has ever known. In the end, who is stronger, the man or the dragon? Find out in Kevin J. Kessler's The Rosinanti series on Amazon.com today.
You're listening to the Just Us Watchtower on Krypton Radio.
Hey, folks, welcome back. We're closing up this last episode, House of L, real quick. Last thing I really wanted to focus on is that we got to see a little bit of the behind-the-scenes look at what Lex was doing during certain big events, like when Agent Liberty made the Kryptonite sky. And
yeah.
we find out that was all just essentially a big way for them to be able to test Kaznia Kara's blood. And just kind of like continue to push her along the path. Now, Lex having his own Supergirl, I also like, because it's kind of like the Death of Superman era, long red hair and beard Lex, who had the protoplasm Supergirl. And did you notice that when Kaznia Kara is in disguise, she says that her name is Linda Lee?
Yes, I did.
Pre-crisis Supergirl Linda Lee Danvers is in National City. So she's in National City during Elseworlds. But what I thought was really interesting was that when she sees Alex in the apartment, Alex is like, "I thought you were on vacation in Smallville." This is before Alex's mind was wiped. So she should have been like, "I thought you were off helping Clark," but it's a small thing. This is an amazing episode, but I do want to move on. I will say one thing that we both said about this episode was that her suit, the Red Daughter suit, looks amazing.
Oh yeah, it looks so perfect to the Superman Red Sun costume from the comic. I mean, and this is just what I was talking about earlier with Shazam in what makes the Arrowverse or the Berlantiverse, whatever you want to call it, and makes Shazam so much better than the other DCEU movies, is because little things like that really, really show that the creators of this show care. Yeah. That they love this material. But they're not afraid to do their own spin. Obviously, they've taken so many of these Superman stories and adapted them to Supergirl.
Yeah,
Absolutely. But you still feel the love and respect for this source material.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So Supergirl season 4, episode 17, called All About Eve. So the first thing I wanted to talk about with this episode is, as the title suggests, Eve. Eve Tessmacher. I love when Kara called her crazy Lex girlfriend.
Yes. I got a good LOL out of that.
Yeah. So the cousin that they go to visit, I looked up the actress to see like if she was anybody, like because that felt like a ripe time for like a cameo, but she wasn't anybody that I saw. The cousin Bitsy, overly perky, a terrible liar, but we see through this that Eve's not like evil. She's just kind of obsessed with this guy. Like she almost sacrificed herself. Like Supergirl is now looking for her, but she stops off to give her cousin this cancer cure with the Hyronel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she has a secret lab. Her password is I love Lex, but we also learn that she's the one that shot Jimmy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that when Lex is done well, and I'm talking about in the comics, I'm talking about in Smallville, done here, the recent animated movies, the Death of Superman and Reign of Superman. When Lex is done well, Lex does not believe that he is the bad guy.
Absolutely not.
And, so it makes perfect sense for him to surround himself with people that also aren't bad guys. A perfect example of this is when he gives Otis the kill order to kill the little kid in Kazdia, and Otis saves the kid.
Yeah, Mikhail.
Yeah,
and that was the moment that's going to come back to haunt them, though, because Kaznia Kara is going to find out that boy's still alive.
Yeah, but it shows that these people in Lex's life are not these, comically, like, evil, mustache-twirling people. They all have shades of good in them. And that makes
he's not Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mind of our time.
No, he's Lex Luthor, the man of tomorrow.
Yeah.
The savior of Earth. And he truly believes that is his role in life.
What would you do? So, what would you have done if in this episode they were like, well, why are you doing this, Lex? And he was like, land.
It's the only thing they're not making anymore. I would have laughed.
Yeah. Eve's password is I love Lex, which I thought was a little on the nose, but pretty funny. And we also saw how capable she is because she uses that X-ray proof car and the image inducer kind of thing to suck her Kara in for that trap, which I'm sure that plan was engineered by Lex, but still, that was a cool moment. Jean has an interesting, this was a big Jean episode. And no more Man of Peace, and he realized that he can't be his father. And I think he had to hear it from his father to truly accept that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
So he meditates and he focuses and he has a conversation with his dead father, who at first is trying to sucker him in. Like he's being like a real jerk to him, being like, well, you failed. You're a failure. What do you want from me? Which, we all know is not the character of this character that we spent all this time with.
I miss that character. Seeing him back in this episode, he is a great character, and he is played by a phenomenal actor.
Absolutely.
And every scene he was in this past week was fantastic.
I'm a big proponent of. I really wish there was a Martian Manhunter TV show, because things like this episode, you really got a sense of what the emotional toll that it takes to be the last of your kind.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing of the entire thing, where he talks about how he killed Manchester Black, and John goes, he was a killer, and his father just goes, so were you. It was just such a matter-of-fact moment. But then it finally builds to that moment where he says, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time he's ever said it, I am the Martian Manhunter. He's called himself a Manhunter before, but this is the first time he fully says, I'm the Martian Manhunter. And I really loved his father gave him the message that he was looking for, where it's like, you don't have to be a man of peace. You're not a man of peace. Help the world in a state that is true to who you are. And that was an awesome message that I liked.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was a great moment. I think it's a great lesson that people can learn from watching that show. And like I said, it was very well executed by two excellent actors with a very good script. I honestly can't say enough good things about the whole Martian Manhunter subplot in this episode.
And now he's going to Mars, so we're going to get more Mars content, which I'm sure he's going to meet up with Ms. Martian while he's there. So that'll be fun. Yeah. So Kara in this episode, she comes to a pretty interesting realization throughout this episode, where, like, she realizes that she freaks out at Lena whenever she feels vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Like, whenever Lena does anything for the betterment of mankind that might have an adverse effect on Kara, she has a temper tantrum. And like when she's like, "You made the Harrenhal?" And Lena's like, "Yeah, and I saved James with it."
Yeah,
I saved James with it. That woman's cancer was cured by it. Then there was a Metallo fight, which I did not see coming. And
no, neither did I.
It felt a little out of place and almost unnecessary. Like, it felt like somebody was like, "Oh, we need more action in this episode. There's not enough action." But I felt like the episode was so good, it didn't need the extra action piece. I was enjoying all the character moments.
Yeah.
Trapping Kara in the Lexo suit with the kryptonite inside of it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
She's helpless to watch while, Kosnia Kara, Red Daughter Supergirl, murders people in her name.
Yeah.
Excellent plan. Speaking of Kosnia Kara, they have her dress up like Kara, and she goes on the murder train. To make the world hate Supergirl, which that's going to be an interesting thing in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to touch real briefly on we got a real taste of Jimmy with PTSD in this episode.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Do you like this storyline? Because I actually kind of dig it. This feels like a thing where I would normally be like, "Why do we need this?" But I actually really kind of dig the fact that Jimmy Olsen is terrified of Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel, why do we need this automatically with anything Jimmy Olsen?
Yeah.
James. Sorry.
I will always say Jimmy. You're allowed to say Jimmy.
Okay. But no, I mean, to me, this was very logical. It was, he was reacting in a way that, people would react. Mm-hmm. And especially once we got more of a backstory of Jimmy and Lex.
Yes.
Here, that it wasn't the first time, far from it, that Lex has,
8 times. He tried to kill him 8 times, they say. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has something like 16 scars from Lex torturing him. So, real quick to just kind of speed through the rest of this, Lockwood is really not Agent Liberty anymore. He's just trying to be like Senator Liberty now. And I think that's interesting because he's very clearly not like aware of Lex's involvement, which I think is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Lena had a big episode, and a lot of stuff with her and Lillian. And I love Lillian. She's female Lionel. And it seems like Lillian is going to cooperate because now we know that Lex is trying to kill Lillian. So the last thing to talk about before we end on this episode is the letter that Lex gave her. And we're going to wait until we take our last commercial break, which we're going to do right now, and we'll be right back with more of the Watchtower.
The Rite of Wands. One boy, one rite. And a world of deadly secrets that could change the course of history forever. It's time for The Rite of Wands by Mackenzie Flohr. When a horrible fate reveals itself during the Rite of Wands ceremony, Myrda must find a way to change his destiny. Forbidden from revealing the future, he is granted a wand and magical powers in order to save himself and those he loves. But Myrda is not the only one with secrets. The Rite of Wands by Mackenzie Flohr, available on Amazon.com now.
Now on Amazon.com. War Calls, Love Cries, a Civil War novel by Mark Berry. Isaac Wells is an innocent farm boy living in upstate New York. His dreams are shattered by a treacherous brother and the onset of a devastating civil war. War Calls and Love Cries is a fast-moving historical narrative. It is an emotional roller coaster ride and a riveting must-read book that you will think about and talk about for a long time to come. War Calls, Love Cries is the kind of book you will cherish for a lifetime. On Amazon.com today.
From some of today's best-selling, award-winning authors comes 22 page-turning tales, Cursed Lands.
Cursed Lands will lead you through one doomed world after another in a haunting dystopian urban fantasy.
Join the courageous as they battle for survival across worlds where fae, vampires, angels, witches, and more roam freely.
Cursed Lands is coming soon on Apple Books, Kobo, and Nook.
Pre-order your copy for just 99 cents today.
Best-selling and award-winning author of true crime and crime fiction, Yvonne Mason is back with a brand new book, The Pink Canary, a book that delves into the life of a drag queen and a marvelous whodunit. You can find this and all of Yvonne's other works on Amazon.com, or find Yvonne Mason on Facebook and Twitter.
He's gonna kill me.
Buy your copy of Pink Canary now.
You know who I might be, but that's not important. What I've come here to tell you today, that is, if you are an independent creator, if you make movies, if you're an author, if you make music, you should enter the Indie Originals Live Talent Competition. Hundreds of categories and lots of prizes will be awarded, but the clock is ticking. Visit www.indieoriginalslive.com right now. www.indieoriginalslive.com.
And now, back to your host, Kevin J. Kessler.
Welcome back to the Watchtower. Closing out this episode of SuperGirl, I wanted to talk about the letter that Lex gave Lena, because we get a brief look at it, but of course with it being 2019, I was able to screenshot it, so I can read it. I can actually read it in its entirety. So it says, Dear Lena, I wish I could say it wasn't personal, planting a spy, stealing your research, but it is. What do you expect? You betrayed me first. You rejected me. You testified against me. You were ashamed of me and my brilliant legacy, but I was the one who should have been ashamed of you, because you were so easy to fool. You see, I planted little Miss Eve Tessmacher in your orbit, in your company. She was my spy. She told me of the experiments you did at the DEO, about how you progressed with your research, and how she and I could steal this research from you. So I escaped prison, knocked you out, and stole it. Bing, bang, boom, easy. You're going to want to chase us. Don't. This time I left you unconscious. Next time I won't be so sentimental. Remember always, the villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard. I will better the instruction. And that's what he leaves her.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. Like, I love that I was able to just kind of screenshot that and just read the entirety of it, because it was wonderful. So I gave this episode a solid 9 out of 10.
Yeah, actually, I think I would agree with you. I want to add one little thing.
Sure.
So, after this week, I now have they've never shared a screen together, but I now have a couple that I now need to see on these shows.
Okay.
I want to see George Lockwood and William Queen be a thing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because
I ship it.
Because, Greg Berlanti's casting with these kids is
these super gay kids
impressively consistent.
That's so funny.
But yeah, I agree. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Also, I think that Supergirl has been just on fire lately. And even though Lex wasn't in the episode, he was still very much felt. His presence was still very much there.
Yes,
even though John Fryer wasn't in the episode itself.
Yeah, and they're saying he's not going to be back to the finale, which I totally believe now. And because I think he's going to be the big bad of next season, which I think is pretty brilliant. So yeah. Legends is back.
Yes.
Legends
Your
season
favorite show.
4, yeah. Maybe not anymore. Legends season 4 episode 9, Lucha de Apuestas. Now, this was the one we were looking forward to when we saw the trailer for the rest of the season. Yeah. Because it was pro wrestling related, and obviously Swan runs a pro wrestling territory. I'm a former pro wrestler that worked for Swan, so it was near and dear to our hearts. But then they made it a Mona episode.
Mm-hmm.
We ended on such a huge high cliffhanger with Mollis being like, or not Mollis. What's the name of the demon? I don't even remember. The demon that's maybe Mollis was last season, right? Yeah,
yes.
It was.
Yeah.
With the demon hunting Constantine being like revealed as Constantine's former boyfriend. Mm-hmm. So now we are brought right back down for a very like out there Gary the Time dweeb heavy, Mona heavy episode. So let's focus on the legends first of all. Sarah is stone cold using Mona.
Hold on. Before we move on, I had maintained that Mona is a worse character than Gary the Time dweeb, and you argued that. After this week's episode, do you still feel that way?
I did until the last 10 seconds of the episode.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't until the last 10 seasons of the episode. Like, I was like, wow, she's officially the worst character. And then I'm like, oh, here's something that makes me interested again.
Mm-hmm.
So the away team this week is Ray, John, and Sarah with Mona. Constantine being a Lucha Libre expert is my all-time favorite thing now.
Yeah.
He's this big Lucha fan. So El Lobo,
stand-in for this episode.
Yeah. The Cope is El Lobo, who came in and he took the veteran spot, brother. So clearly there's heat now. The first thing I saw when I saw El Lobo is he reminded me a lot of UWA Elite All-Star Kyle the Beast Wynette.
Okay.
He just the beastly gimmick. Though I just found it really funny that like El Cora's major complaint with El Lobo is a complaint that I hear from a lot of wrestling veterans about new guys. He never jobs, brother.
Yeah. He's not losing.
Yeah, he's not losing. I don't get it. So there was a lot of wrestling in this episode, even throughout like the regular fights. Like the Cope gives Rory a vertical suplex at one point, and Rory posts like a champ for it, like straight up in the air. I mean, it's good. The scene where they're training El Cora, I loved that. I thought that was really fun. Old wrestlers who are now out of shape training to get the ring rust off for a big return is just something that resonated with me. And I
can see that.
Yeah, it totally did for some reason or another. So Cope clearly doesn't like the job. He doesn't like to lose. So he's having a hard time losing. Every time they try to tell him to lose, he pins El Cora, which is hysterical. I did like El Cora hitting the 619.
Yeah.
But the one thing I thought in this episode was, why wasn't this Rey Mysterio?
I know.
Like that seems like a no-brainer, like the guest star to get for this episode. Like an actual Lucha legend, and Rey Mysterio being the biggest one.
I just think that Rey Mysterio is so small that's why. But the training montage you were talking about, where they were the only thing I could think of during that was the scene from the original Mighty Ducks, or the take the fall, act hurt, get indignant, one more time. It's like...
Yep. Teaching the greenhorn how to sell, brother. The Mona's. So let's move on to Mona. Her creepy love with the Cope.
Explain this whole thing.
The creepy love with the Cope is weird as all heck, and I'm done with it. Well, clearly we're all done with it because the Cope is dead. Spoilers, but and not for nothing, Ava should be fired. You left an untrained girl in charge of these monsters.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, that really, really bugged me. But she does erase Gary the Time Dweeb's mind. I feel like every time she says the words Men in Black throughout the course of this, Columbia and Sony send out a lawsuit to DC.
Yeah, especially when not only are they saying Men in Black, but they're using the friggin' Men in Black mind wipe technology.
Yeah. You know what? We're going to have to finish up on this episode next week because we only have about 2 minutes left. I will say, I thought the show had jumped the shark until the end when the Kopay dies and Mona turns into a Kopay, which, you know, I thought was pretty cool. There's the whole Senator Steele situation. We will have to get to that next week, unfortunately, because we have to close up the Watchtower for this week. We're officially out of time. I did give this episode a 7 out of 10. I thought it was not bad, and the ending kind of saved it. But we'll get into more of that when we come back. How's that sound, Swan?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so folks, thank you again for coming to the Watchtower. Thank you to our friends over at the Hang With Web show for the production and you know, of this show and all that they do behind the scenes. Thank you guys so much, and please check them out. For Dave Swan, got a big show coming up, UWA Elite Luck of the Draw, on April 13th at the Holy Episcopal Church in South River, New Jersey, which you can all go check out. Tickets are available on UWAElite.com. I'm going to be there. So we'll see you guys there, hopefully. And for me, folks, please check out my books, the Rosinanti series, on sale now on Amazon. You can also check out Winters of Elnora, Birth of the Dark Angel, my other standalone novella. And that does it for this week. So without any further ado, for Dave Swan, my name's Kevin Kessler. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Watchtower Offline.
Activate it.
Ooh, where did you come from? Are you looking for me? Yeah! Ooh, you know where I've been. Come here, girl. Come get me.